All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We may have some latecomers in here, but you folks were on time, so I'm going to reward you for that. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. If you don't, I'm sure somebody will let me know. This is Making Time for Storytelling and Communications. Thank you again so much for coming. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to tell your story, how to pitch your story to the media, how to collaborate with RAC and the community, website upkeep, and then we'll, again, have some question time at the end. So how to tell your story. First, why is storytelling important? Well, because people need to get to know you. You know, it's very easy to continue to pour out, here's an event we're holding, here's a fundraiser we're holding, here's an exhibit we have, here's, a program that we're doing. And that's great. But at the same time, that's not telling people really who you are. It's not telling people what makes you so special, why people should care about you. So that's why storytelling is so important. And it also helps you define the identity of your organization or your program. Again, you can send people basic information, but what is your identity? Who are you? Why are you important to the community? Why, again, should people care about your organization? And how does it set you apart? Certainly, we have a lot of really amazing nonprofits in the arts and also non-arts related organizations that have really great arts programming. It's not a competition, but at the same time, it sort of is. And you need to be able to set yourself apart from other people. And that also goes back to identity. If people are getting you confused with other organizations or, they don't quite know who you're affiliated with or what you're all about, that's what you need to tell people through storytelling. And it's not just about fundraising. And I think that's the really hard part because a lot of our organizations are very focused on fundraising because that's how they survive. And I think a lot of times people want to default to wanting to ask money in any given opportunity that they can. But you have to be strategic about it because if you're asking for money and they don't understand who you are, they don't understand why they should care, people are going to skip over that and they're going to give money to somebody that is telling their story really well. So how do we do it? How do we tell our story? Well, first and foremost, social media. Social media continues to be king. There's plenty of, stories out there that say Facebook is losing a little bit of steam. And while that may be true with a younger generation, Facebook is still one of the largest social media platforms out there. If you're not aware, Facebook owns Instagram. They own WhatsApp. Of course, they have Messenger. Facebook is still very much a important platform for you to be a part of. And one of the biggest things that you can do are reels. If you're not familiar with a reel, it's just a video. You can add music to it. You can put emojis on it. You can put text on it. But reels are huge right now. Instagram made reels and stories, which are similar in a lot of ways. I think it's silly that they have two, but they're very similar in a lot of ways. But it's just video. It's video telling stories in real time. And these are huge right now. Instagram made it popular. And then Facebook bought out Instagram. And you see also on TikTok, video is king. Video will always be king. So when you are posting on Facebook, reels, always think about reels of how you can take a quick video of whatever is happening in your program at your organization. Give people a sneak peek. Give people a behind the scenes look. Interact with artists that are doing work in real time. And when you are posting on Facebook, here's something I see a lot of. I perused a lot of our organizations before putting this presentation together, and something that people are not doing are putting links. They're putting information about an event, but there's nowhere for them to go. There's nowhere for the user to go to find more information. So you have to remember to put a link to something. Even if that means you're putting together a Facebook event, well, put a link to that event. Link back to your website. A website always adds legitimacy, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But always, always, always on Facebook, link back to something if you can. Just posting a flyer is not always great. People want to be able to click on something to be able to get more information. Instagram, you can't really post links. That's a little bit harder. You can post it in the post, but it's not clickable. So there is ways to get around that. What a lot of people do is say, visit the link in our bio. So people click on your profile, then they'll see the link that says, here's more information about whatever we're talking about. Now, you have to change that a lot, and they're, making sure that that link is always updated to whatever you're posting about. There are some things out there that Linktree is one that allows you to more or less have a mini homepage on Instagram, so people can click on a lot of links. So that is one way to do it. And a lot of folks like Riverfront Times, that's a good example. A lot of their posts all go back to their Linktree or their link in bio. These are online companies that allow you to make links on Instagram. So that's something to think about too. TikTok still huge, especially with younger generations, though I'm 38 years old. My generation also loves TikTok, but TikTok requires a lot of time and energy, to be honest. There's trends that change every day. So if I were to give you advice about social media, don't try to do everything. Be good at a few things. Now, if you have the time to do them all, great. But you will end up wasting a lot of time trying to put a lot of stuff on TikTok, and you'll say, well, I've only got 50 followers. So that's not really worth your time. So if you're going to do something, be good at one thing, be good at two things. And then you can build from there. Media outreach. You want to be able to pitch yourself to local media. And I'll explain more about that here in just a little bit. E-newsletters. Again, more than just events and fundraising, you need to humanize every e-newsletter that you might send out. If you don't have an e-newsletter, that's okay. It is not necessary for everyone. If you're a program that only happens during the summer, well, an e-newsletter doesn't really make a lot of sense for a full year. But if you're an organization that does a lot of different things, an e-newsletter makes a lot more sense. But again, it's more than just events. It's more than just fundraising. You need to tell the stories of the people that work for your organization. You need to tell the stories of people that are affected by your organization. And then website. Content. I have visited a lot of websites in the last few days that have very old information on it. I don't know if that organization or that gallery or what have you is even functioning anymore, because the last update was in 2021. So you need to make sure, if you're going to have a website, you have to keep it updated. And this is a great place to put events on there as well. And as I mentioned before, a website gives you legitimacy. Grassroots, your time is precious, and I totally understand that because I'm in the same boat. But if you can get involved in other organizations' events, if you can get involved in local art fairs and local events where you can have a presence, that's a great way to spread your message. And that's also a great way to network. So you can spend a little bit of money to help this along the way. I know everybody's budget is tight, but you can do social media for pretty cheap. On Facebook and Instagram, especially because they are linked, because Facebook owns them both. $50 can actually go a long way. You can, put a little money behind a post that you put on Facebook. You can do $50 for 3 days. You can dive down into who exactly you want to target. And I'm actually going to do another webinar specifically about advertising on social media. I haven't set the date for that yet, but it will be this year. So I can walk you through that process. It is not as scary as you might think. And Facebook has a ton of resources because they want you to spend money. But $50 can go a long way, in reaching your audience. Of course, there's some not so cheap options. YouTube ads. YouTube is actually the biggest social media network in the world. You may not think of it as a social media network, but for whatever reason, people consider it a social media network. Google actually owns YouTube. So you run it through the Google platform. There is a learning curve, but it is very effective, but it is costly. It can be costly, but I have found that going through Google, both with Google Ads and with YouTube, we get more return on investment than almost any other advertising platform. But again, it is a little bit more expensive. Something else to consider, and this necessarily doesn't cost you money. It can, but it doesn't have to. Working with local influencers. If you're not on Instagram, I would suggest you personally, at least, or your organization, getting on Instagram and figuring out who are the makers and shakers in St. Louis. How do you get them involved in what you're doing? You know, there are some foodie folks, certainly, and that may not apply to you. But if you have an event with food, you know, perhaps it does apply to you. There are some folks that like to do some travel, and you know that could certainly be something that you could tap into. And then there's folks like St. Louis Bucket List, who we have a really great relationship with, and you know they're all about highlighting local, highlighting the things that make St. Louis amazing. So there's lots of influencers out there that cover all kinds of different stuff. Connect with them. It may not cost you anything. You may just say, look, here's what we're doing. Here's why it's important. You know, we have a real human element. I think it would make great video or some great storytelling. Would you like to come out? So it's as simple as that. It's always good to do giveaways. And, you know, RAC has been collaborating with a lot of folks lately to try to do some giveaways. When I see something that's coming up, I pop in my head and I go, hey, would you guys want to give away some free tickets for that? We can post it on our Instagram, give you guys a little bit of free publicity. What, the 2 tickets cost $50, $70, $100, whatever. So you're out $100 for those 2 tickets, but you're also reaching a very large audience that now is interested in your event, in whatever you're doing. So, you know, work with RAC, work with local influencers to do some giveaways of some kind, if that's applicable to what you're doing. You know, a gala type of thing, or a golf tournament, or a trivia night that, you know, are common fundraisers. Give away 2 tickets, you know, try to get some buzz around the event. And 2 tickets in the long run, it's not going to be that big of a deal if you can get 20 more people there because of the giveaway. And of course, in kind, if there is any situation where you can give something away, and I know that adds up really quickly, but my friends down at Perennial, for instance, on South Broadway, great organization. They're all about sustainability and crafting, and they do some amazing work with women's shelters. But, you know, they do a lot of cool classes. So if one were, they're going to kill me because I can't remember this, but if they are ticketed, then you just give away 2 tickets to, you know, whatever the next workshop is of, hey, create your own clothing or create your own crafts, and you get 2 free tickets to that. And you can do that and give that to other galas and other things to help spread your message. I do want to talk about how we tell our story a little bit, and language is a really big one. I used to work in television. I was a reporter and anchor for many years. And there was a rule that I learned in journalism school at Mizzou. You want to communicate at a 5th grade reading level. That seems kind of crazy. It almost seems belittling, and I get it. But people need to be able to understand it without thinking. And what I often find is a lot of arts organizations and artists like to use jargon that people just don't understand. I get it because that's your world. I worked in education for a while as well, and it was the same problem. They're talking about things and using words that most people don't understand. So you have to make sure that it is jargon-free to the best of your ability and be relatable. You want to talk to people like they're your friend, like they're your family. You don't want to talk, necessarily to people. You want to talk with people. Take us along your journey. Again, when it's talking about the why should people care? Tell us everything that makes it special. Get personal. You know, why are your patrons special? Why are your participants special? And connect with the community. This is an example of what Artists First, another great organization in Maplewood that works with artists of all abilities. And they went to the Paint Lewis event down at the Mural Mile, Labor Day weekend. and they created a mural with all of their participants. And this is the mural right here. And, you know, they took video of it, they took pictures of it, really got up close and personal with the artists that were helping make this possible. And it was really popular on social media because they humanized it. They showed real people doing real work at a big event. And it was inspiring to a lot of people. So this is a hard one. How to pitch your story to local media. How do you get them to care? First and foremost, do your research. Who writes about the arts, or who writes about nonprofits? Who does features about really cool organizations for the Post-Dispatch, for Riverfront Times, St. Louis Magazine? But also think about places like the St. Louis American, the Ladue paper, the Webster paper. You know, there's lots of different newspapers and online magazines, physical magazines that are in St. Louis. Figure out who writes about the kind of stuff that you think you might fit in. And when you're doing that, build your media list. Try to get personal with some of these folks and reach out to them. Say, hi, Steve. This is, so-and-so, this is my organization. I'd love to have you by sometime just so you can check it out. And you're not even really pitching a story. You're just saying, I'd love for you to get to know who we are. I'd love to be able to send you more information. I love the work you do. And I think that this would be some really interesting content. They want to get to know you. You want to get to know them. And you want to find balance. There is a situation where you can oversaturate the inbox of a reporter or a news organization. You want to balance frequency. You want to be at their, at the top of their minds, but you also have to make sure that what you're sending is important. Now, I know you think everything is important, and I totally get that because it is, but reporters only can do so much in a certain day. So you really have to pick and choose some of the things that you think would really, really hit with that. And then you have to figure out your hook. Why should they care? What is that one thing that really makes it unique? Be like, hey, we're doing this event. We've got this. And something really cool about it is we're doing fill in the blank, and no one else is really doing this. Or you're talking about one of your volunteers, you're talking about one of your patrons, one of the attendees of one of your programs. This person is really interesting because here's their story. And that's your hook. That's what gets them to care. And you want to make it easy. Nothing is more exciting to a reporter than when they get an email and they say, hey, I've got 3 people you can talk to. They're all available today. Here's some really cool video opportunities I think that you could use, or here's some really cool photo opportunities that I think you could do. Make it as easy as possible for the reporter so it's not vague, number one, but number two, that they feel confident that you know what you're doing and that you'll have everything pretty much set up for them. And I will say, if you ever need advice about that, I am always here to help. And then follow up. Don't give up. Again, it's the frequency balance again, but don't be afraid to say, hey, I emailed you last week, just wanted to follow up to see if you might be interested. I'd love to talk to you more about it. And don't give up because reporters aren't responding or they're not picking up your story. Sadly, that is the nature of communications and public relations, is you can pitch and pitch and pitch, and you hear nothing. We even have that problem at RAC. I had that problem in education. When I was in the news, we got a lot of stuff, and there's only so much time during the day. So don't give up. Continue working that angle, because you never know when you might finally break through. And sometimes, I will say this, it took me a while to get my boss to believe me on this. A lot of media coverage is pure luck. It's a matter of, is anything big happening that day? And if not, and you just happen to be pitching a story that day, that would be a great feature for them to do. Yeah, go do that story, because there's nothing major happening, no major crime overnight, no fires, no big political issues happening right now. Go do that feature story. That sounds great. That'll be good on the newscast. So a lot of times it's luck, and you'll only get in there, if you try. But at the end of the day, you have to be your own news outlet. You know, if you have an e-newsletter, and we spoke about that earlier, again, make sure you're telling your stories in that e-newsletter about the people that work with you, the volunteers that make your organization run, the people that use, you know, your programs and where they came from and their backstories. You know, social media, again, a great way to tell your story. And your website, as we mentioned before, another place to tell your story. You can't rely on anyone else to tell your story. First and foremost, you have to tell it. And then the hope being that someone sees that and then they want to talk about you too. Collaboration with Rack. I was amazed when I first got to Rack almost 2 years ago now. I was thinking I was going to be bombarded with emails all the time of people, you know, wanting us to help them with programs, like, you know, spreading the word. And we do get plenty of those, and we get a lot of events. And again, events are great, but not many people are sharing their actual story with Rack about who they are, why they're special. We need that content. We want to put as many of our grantees, especially, on our website and talk about why it is they're amazing and why they contribute so heavily to the St. Louis community. And of course, why we give them funding, because they're making an impact. We also want to help you with that media pitch. If you've got a great story, and, you know, especially if you're one of our grantees, I want to tell that story to the media. I want to say, look, Rack gave them some funding. Look what they're doing with that funding. They're making a huge impact. That is why we do what we do. And, you know, that's a good thing. That's a win-win for us. It's a win-win for you. And we really want to start also, Rack wants to start pushing our stories out further. We want more people to care about St. Louis in various ways. Number one, we want some positivity out there. You know, St. Louis is its biggest enemy sometimes, and we want to bring some positivity to that space. You know, especially at the regional level. You know, in not just the Midwest, but over in the Metro East, Kansas City, Columbia, Springfields. You know, we want them to think positively about St. Louis, and we can do that through the arts. And then national, we just want to put St. Louis on the national stage as being an arts town, and that this is a place where artists can thrive. This is a place where an organization dedicates millions of dollars every year to just help you exist. And that's not always the case in every community. And then social media. We have some great social media presence. We've grown it a lot in the last year, and we always need content. Diving a little bit deeper into website. Why is website so important? As I mentioned before, legitimacy. When you have a website, people think you're real. When you have an updated website, people think, oh, you still exist. You're still doing things. Again, I've been to a few websites recently. I can't tell if they are still going or not, or if they just let their website stop in 2020 and perhaps they don't exist, but they are still paying for the domain. I don't know. SEO, that is search engine optimization. Basically, when people Google things, will you pop up? And you do that by having an updated website, by putting lots of great content on there. When people are searching for things, there's a better chance they will find you if you have an updated website. Facebook is on decline, as I mentioned earlier, but at the same time, it still is important, but it is a trend that makes websites a little bit more important. Instagram, as I mentioned earlier, does have limitations. You can't really link to things. It's not something that is user-friendly for you know, clickable things. Storytelling, as we've continued saying, events, a great place to put events, and then any e-commerce that you might have. There are a lot of really great e-commerce platforms that are very, very simple to use. So if you have a gift shop, I'll think about my friends at Artists First. They have a really cool little gift shop. Why not put that online and try to sell it? You know, push it during the holidays, during major shopping seasons. That's a great place for you to have a little bit of e-commerce. Now, time management. A lot of you are probably thinking this is all great, but there are 3 of us in my organization and a bunch of volunteers. I fully understand that. When I came on at Rack, there were 6 of us. You know, so I get only having so much time in the day. On social media, if you can do something 2 to 3 times per week, you're doing pretty good. Now, if you could do it every day, great. But if you can do it at least 2, 3 times a week, you know, that to me it can be very manageable, and it keeps your content fresh so that people can expect new things from you every single week. Website, if you can update it 2 to 3 times per month, you know, with updated events, updated content. A little blog is always nice. Little blog posts that, you know, literally are a paragraph or two talking about what was happening at your organization that week. E-newsletter, monthly. You know, some people do it more frequently. If you can do, if you're doing an e-newsletter, I think monthly is pretty appropriate. My last little thought for you before we get to questions: making time for communications is not optional. You have to treat communications just as much, you know, just at a high level, just like everything else you do. If you're not communicating with a community, you're not telling your story, people are not going to care about what you do. It's a harsh reality, but communications is so important. It's not something that, well, I'll get to it when I can get to it. It has to be a top priority for your organization, because that's the only way you can grow in the sense of making an impact on the community, of telling people about what you're doing to be able to, you know, do more fundraising. If people care about you, people want to give you money. You have to be out there doing this on a regular basis. And if you don't know how, if you can't figure out how to do it, again, there are a lot of great resources out there about how to manage your time in that space. And again, I'm always happy to have a conversation with you based on what your organization is all about, and say, all right, how can I do this with what I have going on right now? So now I'm going to open it up to some questions. And oh, Tony, yeah, there's not a sign language interpreter here. We are going to do captions afterward, and it will be available. So thank you for bringing that up. We will have this online with captions after we post. Does anybody else have any questions regarding anything I've said? I'll let you type it in the Q&A, and if you don't have any questions, no big deal. You can get a hold of me at any time. My name is Jay, and it is jay@racstl.org. I'm on the website. I'm very easy to find. And if you have any questions at any time, or would like to just discuss any sort of marketing strategy, any sort of communication strategy, help you out with some things, we're here. We are here to help it, because we want you to succeed, because we know the important work that you do, and we want people to know about it. Are there people out there who can handle social media that are affordable? Great question, Mark. Yes, there are lots of companies that can tailor, you know, a social media strategy for you. There's a lot of freelancers out there looking for a little bit of side work that you can say, you know, can you spend 10 hours a month? And a lot of times what they'll do is you will give them a bit of information about what it is you want to post about. And you can go one of two ways. You can say, look, I'm not very good at photos. Can you come take some photos too? That'll cost a little bit more. Or you can say, hey, I'm going to take some photos, you know, with my iPhone. I mean, iPhones have great cameras on them. You know, I have a Galaxy S22. It takes great photos. So you can take the photos, deliver the stuff to them, and then they can craft that message in the best possible way using best practices. And to be able to do that for you. So there are affordable social media freelancers out there that can 100% help you. Another question about Threads. Man, I have a hard time with Threads. You know, it's just one more thing. I'll admit, when Threads came out, boy, there was a lot of talk about it. Ever since that time, I have heard very, very little about it. I haven't heard it in any media mentions. I haven't heard anything about, hey, this video or this whatever went viral on Threads. So right now, we're not doing threads. So I'll tell you that we are not doing threads either on the RAC side of things or our tourism arm, stlouisarts.org. So, we, again, want to stick with a few things we're good at, which right now is Instagram and Facebook. We have a Twitter feed. I post on it occasionally. Twitter is it never really took off in the Midwest. And now that Elon Musk has it and it's turned into X, there's a lot of people leaving the platform. So if you have Twitter, great. But it's not something I would spend any time about. With Threads, I would focus way more on Instagram and Facebook and doing the reels and the stories on that. That would be much more worth your time. And Mark asked, where can we find the social media freelancers? Any resource available to find them? There are a few creative agencies out there. Creative Circle is one that comes to mind that connects you with people. It does make it a little bit more expensive though. LinkedIn is always a good place to find people. You can type in social media freelance and you can find some folks that way. You can literally put it out on your feeds. If you already have some social media or you have an e-newsletter or a database of people, say, hey, does anybody know anybody that does some social media freelance work? And then there's a few websites out there, and I don't have them on the top of my head, Mark, but if you want to email me, I can send you a few that are places you can find freelancers for social media. And, a simple Google search can connect you with some of those companies. But there are lots of folks out there that are willing to do some side work for you, with your social media, and it can be affordable, if you find the right situation. Great questions, all great questions. Any other questions about content, about how to get content, about social media? Again, I am going to host a social media, diving a little bit more into that, about how to advertise, how to see some things on the back end that let you target, very specific people, that you think would be more likely to interact with your post, interact with your profile. And then we will do also a deep dive into websites as well. Even if you have a website, kind of thinking about an audit for your website. Is the website where you need it to be? And there's some really good training out there too, for some of these website platforms like WordPress or Squarespace or Wix. They want to make it easy because they want anyone and everyone to be able to use those things. They don't want to make it complicated. So there are definitely some options out there as well. What is the best way for us to share our posts with RAC so we do not become annoying? You're never annoying. We want to be bothered. And so the best way you can do that is to email us. And you want to make sure that all of your all your photos are high resolution. You don't want it to be blurry. And there are really easy ways to do that. A lot of people make graphics and make flyers and such in Canva, which is a great free program. And you can save it as a high resolution file. And they can even tell you, like, here is an Instagram post, and it'll give you the sizes, because you don't want to put flyers on Instagram. You really don't even want to put them on Facebook, to be honest, because a traditional 8.5 by 11, sheet of paper flyer does not do very well on social media. Number one, Facebook and Instagram do not like more than a third of the image being text. If they have more than a third of the image being text, they bump it down in their algorithm, meaning less people are going to see it. So you want to put more information in the actual written part, and then only a little bit of the text, maybe the day, the time, where. And that goes on your image. And you want the image to shine with the text being a third or less. Again, we're going to go into that with the social media webinar to really dive down deep into that. But if you want to email us, either j@racstl.org, info@racstl.org. Those are great ways to interact with us. Email is always easier than just sending us something via Messenger on Facebook or via messages on Instagram. But at the same time, it's not impossible. It's just Instagram makes it really, really hard to save images. They don't want you to save images. Facebook makes it easier, but Instagram, for whatever reason, makes it a big, big pain in the butt. So if you can share those images with us via email, we'll have the nice big file that we can put. Great question. Thank you. Any other questions? Again, thanks so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. We will be posting this and sharing it with the folks that came, the folks that didn't come. But again, we're going to be doing a few more webinars this year, and we're going to pick it right back up next year. We want to give our grantees and the arts community as a whole as many tools as we can for them to be successful. And we're going to be doing that in lots of different ways. And we're learning a lot as we're doing this webinar series to be able to, make them better as we go along. So thank you again for everybody coming today. Really just appreciate it. And we'll go ahead and close things down. Everyone have a great day. Thanks again.